All right, we're here with our guest today. It's Elana Freeland. I had the honor of getting to see Elana last year or earlier this year, I suppose it was, come to my local area and give a wonderful lecture on transhumanism and geoengineering. And I sat and I listened, and she showed slides, and I was blown away with every word that came out of your mouth. It was all extremely fascinating, very compelling. And I also had the honor of being able to have breakfast with you the next morning where we got to chat a little bit. And as we were talking, I started thinking that you and Debra need to meet each other because Debra is hungry for new information.
Yes, I am.
And I think that this will be really great because Debra, you're at least familiar with Adam and I's opinions on chemtrails.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
I don't know if you agree with us all the time, but you've heard our conversations.
Yes, I have.
You've heard our side of the story.
Mhm.
And Elana goes much deeper than Adam and I ever have on this podcast. So I think a great way to start would be to have a very open-ended question for Elana from you, even though I'm going to ask it, Debra.
All right.
Which is, what exactly is transhumanism and geoengineering?
Oh,
well done.
That's cheating, I think. Yeah, when I started researching what originally was just called chemtrails, that was a long time ago. That was, I guess, about 12 years ago now. And I became friends with Clifford Carnicom through the serendipity of life. I wasn't looking for him, but I had been asked by a publisher that I did various editing jobs for, Adam Parfrey at Feral House. I had been asked to if I could write a book on chemtrails. So I had it in my mind. And so that's kind of how life seems to work, is you get something in your mind and pretty soon you're meeting the people you need for it. That's certainly how my life has gone. So I got to know Clifford and found that he was collecting various precipitations and a lot of dust in his HEPA filter at his home in northern New Mexico. I was living in Santa Fe. And he was running a test then for whoever would do it called the red wine test, which was where you clean out your mouth really as well as you can. And then you take in a swig of either red wine or grape juice and you slosh it around for a few minutes. Then you spit it into a very clean jar. And then you see if anything happens. So what I saw definitely got my attention, which was a filament, a black filament that crawled across the bottom of the jar that I had spit the wine into.
Was the lid on the jar?
No. I mean, it all just happened, you just like you could do a petri dish too.
Okay.
And there was other debris, maybe some skin from inside my mouth or whatever. But the fact that it had its own motility, and I had a double major with biology when I was in undergrad, and I got a degree in creative writing, but my other major was biology. So I definitely was interested. Then we did the blood test. Take just a drop of blood, put it on a slide, stick it under the microscope, about a 300 power at that point. And what I saw was this entity, not the one from my mouth, but somewhere else in my body was another entity, or more than one. and they were sucking the iron out of my red blood cells. Just, and my red blood cells were pancaking. So we collected blood from, maybe between 25 and 50 other people, and looked at it under the microscope. And indeed, my blood cells had not looked as bad as many of the blood cells I saw. But still, it was the entity sucking the iron out. So now I was really awake to what this meant, because it's coming from the air, and it's from these chemical trails. Clifford had already determined these were not contrails, because the chemical signature of what was coming out of the backs of jets was definitely chemical, was not water vapor, was not anything close to a contrail. And so that meant that the entire atmosphere was had at least some of these entities in it, which meant that, well, just about everyone had been breathing this same air, because it's like one big balloon that we all breathe from. So Clifford, of course, was extremely concerned. He was a scientist. He'd worked for the Department of Defense years before and had quit, and then worked for the Bureau of Land Management, thinking it was more benign. Not really so. So he quit there, and he was on his own. He was doing consulting for computers and things like that to make money, but meanwhile studying intensely what was going on in the atmosphere. So that began a lifetime friendship. We're still friends, and I still count on him for his opinion in certain things, and so that I just wanted to give the beginning story, because when I hit geoengineering, we hadn't even heard the word transhumanism at that point, nor had I really heard the word geoengineering. All I heard was chemtrails. And of course, the CIA had, at least this is my opinion, the CIA had thought up the term conspiracy theorist back in the Kennedy days, when Kennedy was assassinated, as a way to discredit people who were inquiring a little too deeply into the Kennedy assassination. And of course, that would be the term that was used for me, as well as tinfoil hat, etc. But that has never daunted me, because before I ever hit this topic, I had already spent about 10 years studying MK Ultra, which was the huge mind control program run by the CIA and the Operation Paperclip Nazis that we had brought into the United States and given carte blanche to. So I knew how to research. I knew how to read between the lines. I knew that disinformation and lies are just about the way the mainstream media operates. So I was definitely interested in what was going on, and would therefore know that I had to read in a certain way. I had to pay attention, a lot more attention than they teach you in PhD programs. I had to pay attention to hearsay, what people were saying around the country, around the world, about, yes, the Morgellons,
That's what I was going to ask. Is that what those little entities?
Yeah, the filaments were, according to Clifford, definitely Morgellons. But his problem was to break into that polymer sheath that it was in. The wormy looking thing that was moving across the bottom of the jar was just its coating. And so he then had begun already, by the time I met him in the early 2000s, he had already begun to figure out that he would have to break into it chemically. And he had a variety of petri dishes, and he was trying this here and that there and this, and keeping very careful notes, as is very much, he has I don't know how many hundreds of notebooks filled from all these years that he spent on this this really extremely, I would almost say this is the big elephant in the living room, the geoengineering. And of course, I didn't know that then. So, all right. So then the chemtrails were definitely part of it. So they're dumping stuff. He also found conductive metals, aluminum, barium, strontium, chromium, lithium, a lot of different kinds of conductive metals. And he realized pretty early in the game that they were, a lot of it had to do with HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska. And so that's kind of where I began the first book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, is just to spell out the very elementary level of what people could know about this huge national security secret project going on. And whenever HAARP did come up in the news, which it did now and then, it was primarily in terms of, oh, we're studying submarine communications. And so the idea being that you take electromagnetic waves, you bounce them off the ionosphere, and you give your transmission ends up with a sub somewhere. So it was a good story, but it was definitely a cover story that is easy to see through when you begin to really study what HAARP can do. And the first book that ever came out, and I'm sure you remember it, Angels Don't Play This HAARP. And that was in 1995 that came out. So when I picked it up, the biggest thing I had to do in Chemtrails HAARP were, in my mind, two things. One was to really break down what Bernard Eastland's patents, particularly the 1987 patent for HAARP, said, and what its implications for human health were. And that would primarily be electron resonance, cyclotronic resonance. And so I explained that very well, or tried to. And then a chapter on Clifford's work, because at that point, no one, that was 2014, no one had published a thing about his work. He was constantly writing the CDC, the EPA, the FAA, anybody who he thought might pay attention to the fact that a travesty was being perpetrated in the atmosphere that would no doubt affect all of life on Earth, including human beings. And they ignored him. At the same time, he had a device by which he could tell who was hitting his website, where he was publishing all his papers. And that had over around 125 to 150 alphabet agencies every day were hitting his website to see what he had come up with. So he knew he was on the trail of something extremely significant. And I was just sort of trailing behind him and picking up little pieces here and there as I came on board this huge topic. So that was the beginning of the geoengineering. And geoengineering, if you read the definitions that are put out, is primarily using technology to influence environment. And that certainly is true. That sounds very simple, but Clifford had really, through the years, determined that there were 7 operations that were really going on regarding geoengineering, and weather control over the weather was just the first one. But it certainly is important, because weather is tremendously powerful to control nations, to impact individuals and regions. And also weather actually creates energy in our troposphere, particularly electrical storms. So weather was very big, and sort of was the keystone to the other operations that were going on, because in my books, I spend quite a bit of time detailing what those are too. And let me just, so I can read it, I'll read it really fast. So weather engineering, chemical electromagnetic engineering, planetary geophysical engineering, directed energy weapons, surveillance and neural manipulation, nanotechnology, digital synthetic biology, transhumanism is one long category. And then the final one is cloaking and obscuration, plus detection of exotic propulsion craft and plasma life forms. And
Hey,
these,
can I stop you for 1 sec, Elana?
yeah.
I just want to ask and or point out there's a building that's not far from where I live. That's it's just it looks like an office building, and the only words on the outside are geoengineers. And of course, that caught my eye. And I looked up the business, and the business, it seems harmless enough. They do testing at construction sites before starting construction. And at least the way that website makes that business seem to be is that all they're doing is, they're like tapping the ground, they're making sure that things are solid enough to build buildings on and things like that. Do you think that could be like a term that's out there to muddy the waters, to get that term into people's heads as something that's innocent, that would be out there? Yeah, benign, that like, oh, no, you tinfoil hat people, you're all crazy, because yes, geoengineering is real. It's just it has nothing to do with those 7 things. It's a part of construction.
It's like the survey crew.
Yeah, they're closer to a survey crew for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up a good point, because most of the technology that I write about, whether it's geoengineering or directed energy weapons or anything like that, they're all what the military calls dual use. And that's the magic term. So they're made to serve 2 purposes, or to have 2 prongs. They're all part of what could be easily construed as a weapon system. All of it. That includes your TV, that includes your iPhone, that includes your, all of the electromagnetic devices that we think are so convenient and so entertaining. The dual use is military and civilian. And what makes it one or the other is the access to certain frequencies. And that would be something that I would construe for maybe that little company near where you live, they are what they are. Possibly their CEO or whatever he is would be someone who absolutely pays attention to how they make their profits, how they keep in business. But their devices that they utilize to do their work, my assumption would be, until proven otherwise, that the military would have all the frequencies and could therefore make use of it. And that's kind of how I feel about our devices in our homes, is when you're asleep at night and maybe you've unplugged the router if you're smart, and you've got all your devices off so that you can have a good quality sleep without electromagnetism zapping you all the time. I sometimes think that all of our accounts and our 60 hertz in the wall and everything that's energy available can definitely be used if they need it in your region. They can draw on that. They have the magical frequencies for that. We don't have those frequencies. So
the people, sorry,
yeah,
brief interruption. The people who have claimed, I think it's happened in various places across the world, that they have a high frequency ailment, could this be what?
You mean electrosensitivity?
Not sensitivity, but I'm trying to remember. It was in the news a while
Not
back.
tinnitus, not tinnitus.
No, but there was some. They all were in a location and they all got sick.
Oh, you're talking about Havana syndrome.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Havana syndrome. Well, yes, this is definitely connected to this. Anything to do with frequency can be abused or used. So with Havana syndrome, and that it's very clever of them to think up a term for it, because a lot of targeted individuals would like them to think up a term for what they're undergoing, because it's all targeting. It's all intentional targeting. It's not just that you happen to be sensitive and you walk into a field of maybe some beams and boom, you're down, or your middle ear is trashed. It's generally speaking, whoever is putting that kind of energy out knows how to handle it and knows what it can be used for as a weapon or otherwise. So in the case of the embassy in Cuba, that was very similar to the very old story of the Russian ability to take over and actually end up in death. The American embassy in Moscow back in the 70s. And that's a very famous story. You'll run across that in any history of electromagnetics and directed energy weapons. That same ability that Russia was able, that the Soviet Union was able to use, they could also beam all the way to the military base outside Eugene, Oregon. And then from the base, they were able to target all of Eugene and I believe double the suicide rate in Eugene with that frequency. So,
oh my Lord.
So we've been doing this, well, certainly from before the 70s, but the 70s were when a lot of these things were a done deal. One of them that's very famous is microwave hearing. And microwave hearing is just that, where they bypass your ears and send messages into the hearing portion of your brain, the portion that is translating what you're hearing. So
like voice to skull technology.
Yeah,
right?
V2K, it's commonly called voice to skull. And you can be walking with a whole group of people, but you will be the only one who hears it, because they're using your signature. Every person has a unique signature, and they call it the evoked potential. It's a scalar term, but it's the most accurate. So only Elana hears it if I'm walking with groups. I recently did a book tour for a month, and I was hit badly in Los Angeles, to the degree that my health was completely impacted, and I had to cancel certain dinners I was supposed to be at and cancel talking with different individuals, but I was able to still do my scheduled talks for the big groups. But I couldn't keep any food down for over a week. So I was projectile vomiting. People thought I had COVID. Well, of course, there is no COVID, but there is an algorithm for COVID symptoms. I assume that, where you can actually transmit via 5G, would be my guess, the frequency for a set of symptoms. And I didn't have all the symptoms of COVID, but I definitely had symptoms of something going on, because I was projectile vomiting. I had no energy. I just could sleep all the time if people would let me. I actually had moments where I thought they were finally going to kill me, because I've been hit before, but not this bad. and not where I had to fulfill my obligations to people who'd been waiting for months for me to come to this was in the Los Angeles area. So
I got a real quick question. Just a thought that that spurred. Is it possible that something like that could happen to you in a place like LA, not because of you in that moment being a targeted individual, but instead that it's LA and they're kind of just putting this out across
5G? It's so 5G there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like that you're there while they're giving a lot of people symptoms of COVID.
Oh, I think, yeah, but I think, well, in my case, it was during the talks that things got most
That's
intense.
more targeted sounding. Yeah.
So no, I was definitely targeted. But you bring up a very good point. Yeah, certainly the fact that I was in massive 5G environment and that I was not in my my geomagnetic frequency. Now, the geomagnetic is a magnetic grid that is in the Earth and around the Earth as the magnetosphere. And that's one of the reasons why people used to, stay in the area of your birth, because your magnetic, the geomagnetism of that area is something you resonate with. So you go into another area, like me going into LA from up here in Washington State, and I'm all over the place because I didn't have time to adjust. I'm moving, doing this tour, and so that was definitely part of the weakening of me. And then the guys that run my file, is what I call them, they then had a much easier time of throwing me off. Certainly during my talks. I mean, I had something very unusual happen during one of the talks where I literally felt them in my head. Wow. Now, I normally don't have them in my head. That's what I hear a lot from targeted individuals who contact me. But I did feel it. And, were they just trying to see if I would act silly or break down or cry, or what were they, what was their MO for this? Well, I think their MO was to weaken me, because my last talk was to the Bobby Kennedy group. And at that point, there was the rumor that he was coming. So I think they wanted me to fail in these public appearances, would be my guess. So anyway, I have experienced a little bit of what the Havana syndrome is based on, which is you are being hit with beams. And generally those beams, and HARP is definitely a weapon system that is very dedicated to this. It doesn't just do weather. No, it does, it did Fukushima. It did the hurricanes in Katrina and Sandy, and the one down in the Caribbean. And I could go on and on about HARP's capabilities, but it also needs another beam, because it has to do this, or interference over the target area. And it has to have that interference. Yes, HARP is very powerful. It's probably the most, well, up to now anyway, it's been the most powerful ionospheric heater we have in our arsenal.
I've heard some things about China building one.
Hmm?
Yeah, I've heard some things about China building one that's supposed to dwarf HARP or something to that effect. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and so this science is very classified, and you have a hard time finding anything where you're not going to be able to particularly witness it. You might see some events that are actually from it, but you won't be able to necessarily determine that unless you are, of course, a plasma physicist, for example. If you're on the deck there at these places where they're studying this state-of-the-art futuristic physics where they know exactly that all of this is scalar, that this is not Einsteinian, Newtonian physics anymore at all, at all, then they'll know much more than those of us out here who are trying to piece things together and and get an idea of what we're going to be suffering because of this vast move going on. It's the same thing with the synthetic biology, right? There's a lot going on, and all we can see are the events, and then we sort of analyze those events, look at the serums, look at the blood of these inoculations in order to determine what is being done to these people. So I'm comfortable with that because I've always been picking up the scraps and the garbage and the stuff under the rug for ever since the 60s to figure out what's being done in reality now that we are all subject to the National Security Act of 1947, the year I was born in, whereby if it's anything to do with national security, it immediately goes into closed session. And and all of the scientists are now compartmentalized on a need-to-know basis. All the security measures are all compartmentalized on a need-to-know basis. So this whole thing that the National Security Act set up in 47 has really destroyed our republic and any democratic leanings that we might have had. So I already knew all this by the time I hit the geoengineering. Now, for the transhumanism, let's just say a word there. The geoengineering is a very good way through the environment, through aerosols, to implant on a nano scale whatever one would want to experiment with as being helpful to controlling the human brain, the human body, and human behavior. So that's kind of when Clifford was, so long ago, determining the presence of Morgellons and fungi and parasites. He was finding all these together. They're not the same thing at all. And then you realize that, oh, this is not just about jet fuel efficiency. This is not just, the conductive metals are not about the engines in these jets. There's, he even found pieces of flesh from animals in some of the detritus that he was collecting. So it became obvious pretty quickly that there were things being put into what was being spewed in the stratosphere.
How was he collecting this?
Mainly those two things I mentioned, collecting precipitation,
right,
in making sure that he had clean vessels that he was collecting in. Mm-hmm. And then the HEPA filter, which at that point was really state of the art.
Yeah.
There are now much better filters. In fact, a lot of people ask me, well, if the rich and famous are, if the global elites are doing this to us, why aren't they suffering? Well, they have all the state-of-the-art equipment to protect themselves and clean their environments, and they have their means. It's the same way as when the World Health Organization created AIDS back in the 80s. That was really the first time I realized how powerful research can be if you're paying really good attention to what's coming out in media, because I was able to see very early that it was the WHO who was behind it all. So you know that they have the antidote for their children, for their brothers and sisters, for themselves. So it's always ever thus. So transhumanism is when you are dedicating that technology, or dedicating technology to the transformation of human beings into other species. Now, they've had Hunimals for years, where they're taking genetics from humans and genetics from animals and creating these terrible aberrations that
That's also called a chimera, correct?
like chimeras, yes. And I chanced to, again, life sends you who you need. I chanced to meet a man who since has been pretty much trashed in mental institutions and with masses of medication. He actually encountered a chimera, a Hunimal, in the desert in the Sierra Nevada high desert where he and some friends were skiing. And they were approached by what seemed to be a man, but quite tall, maybe between 7 and 8 feet tall, and it was had a reptilian appearance. Now that the CIA has gotten busy to cover up all that, you hear about reptilians, and we of course have a part of our brain is called the reptile brain, the reptilian brain. It's a very old brain at the back near the cerebellum. How do I know that happened to him? Well, then he began to tell me the rest of the story as to how he ended up in the mental institutions. And it was obvious and then all the guys he'd been with all had accidents and were dead. So it seems that would have been back that he had that happen would have been in the, I would assume the 90s. So I know we've had this for much longer than that. I'd say the technology is, 50 to 100 years ahead of what most people can even imagine.
Alana, are you familiar with the book called Camelio?
Oh yeah, I've read it twice.
Yeah, it's about a guy who was kind of a meth head guy in San Diego, and he was targeted after someone that he knew stole some night vision goggles from Camp Pendleton and brought him to his house, and he was blamed for it, and didn't have anything to do with it, just the fact that he had like this kind of tweaker party house and people would bring stolen stuff there. So after that happened, he reported all sorts of wild stuff, but he encountered like some guerrilla people out in the desert, out in the San Diego desert. So
that's right.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now.
Well, it's we've been now shocked into realizing that genetics has gone much further than any of us knew. The Human Genome Project really went much, much further. We now know there are clones, for example. What are clones? Well, there are 3 different types of clones, and I detail that in the book Geoengineered Transhumanism. But this too has to do with the targeting individuals, like in the Havana syndrome. Okay, so those people were targeted. Why were they targeted? Well, there's never just one reason. There would be a political reason. There might be a genetic reason. There might be a family dynasty region. There are many, many reasons that targeting happens. It's just that the reason I'm harping on it, in a way, no pun intended, is that we really need to pay attention to the world we live in, not the one we just lived in, not the one where we saw things happening and it was mysterious and and maybe it was the aliens and it was UFOs and whatever anybody comes up with. But now we have very real technology that can do extraordinary things. And, it behooves us to learn about this technology, not just to hide our head and hope that the angel of death passes over us and doesn't notice us, but that we really come to terms with how far the technology has gone and what it bodes for true human beings. And that's the transhuman story I'm interested in. I don't want to be a transhuman. Now, there are people who want to be transhumans, and there will be transhumans of various levels. There will be those who just have all sorts of implants and have, various surgeries for, like they're trying to do with the gender thing going on with youth. There will be many levels. There will be the ones who have been inoculated, and in the inoculation, like if I could just talk a moment about the present inoculations going on. Okay, so when I first saw the scenes in Wuhan long ago, right back in the end of 2019, or
You're talking about the people collapsing on the street.
When I saw that, I immediately knew it was a 5G story. I immediately recognized it. It was 60 gigahertz. I knew it. Oxygen depletion, boom, gone, dead. And even if they were actors, I'm willing to think they might have been actors, and that it had been pre-decided that this is what we'll do the scene of, because that would have made it a nuncio, would have made it an announcement to the world, much like 9/11, when you saw the fake hologram jet coming in. And, you saw it so quickly, but then, of course, they played it over and over and over from various angles. And it became a traumatizing event. And we all went into the dream time in seeing that. That's a well-known CIA tactic for getting into the subconscious. Well, the Wuhan thing with everybody dropping over like flies, like they're doing now post-vax, just dropping. That was, I just knew it was 5G. And then I began to research and found out that, 3 weeks before, Wuhan had finished putting up extremely state-of-the-art 5G system, because, of course, it had those 2 labs there. And labs require a lot of heavy use of intense frequency type equipment. So I got off on the right track right from the beginning, that I knew it was an electromagnetic event. But what I didn't know was what was inside these people. Now, all of China had been required to be vaccinated right around that time before that Wuhan scene. So that was my second clue, that there had been a vax event. Everybody had it. And in China, I assume it really was everybody.
What was it? What were they saying it was for?
Health.
Okay.
Like a flu thing. It was winter. Those were 2 elements that, you have as sort of, if you're paying attention and you're not going into a state of fear, where now you're shutting down all of your ability to observe and think. And then you can go from there. And that's, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, that I didn't know it was a transhuman moment, but soon as I heard that they were selling it as a pandemic, then it crossed my mind that this might be the genetic moment, that they were going to change the human genome through these inoculations. Now, what I didn't know, I knew that 5G would play a big role in it, but I didn't know how. And I didn't understand yet that the vaccination events, including the boosters or whatever, is actually a 2-pronged assault on humanity. One prong is very much the mRNA gene editing going on of the human genome. Yes, that is real. So there's a genetic event going on, but there's another one, and that's only come out in the last year, primarily through La Quinta Columna in Spain, tremendous research group that I just think are the holy grail of this whole
The
thing.
fifth column, right?
Yeah. And they were finding, and they're not the only ones, they were finding in Italy, there were different places where certain researchers, doctors, researchers who had electron microscopes were able to get down to the nitty gritty of these serums and of the blood after post serum. So they were finding computer equipment on a nanoscale in people's bodies, right? They could tell at first it was just a matter of, wow, what's this? It's got like right angles. Well, nothing organic has right angles. So what the heck is that? And then it began to be where, oh, that's a router. That's what that is. It's just like a router. That's a circuit board, but they're all on a nanoscale. So right away you see only the high-tech guys can find this stuff, and those machines cost a fortune. You know, little pieces go together. You suddenly realize that that's the second prong, where then you hear about the Bluetooth connectivity and how people are entering, you know, restaurants and bars and things and setting off Bluetooth connectivity with the monitor over the bar.
Did you ever hear about that, Deborah?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, and that brings up a very good point. We'll cover that in a minute. So you know, the Bluetooth, and then some people who are really thinking their way through this are like, well, let's set up an experiment and see if this is true. So you know, getting various people to approach a computer that is set up for Bluetooth, but can recognize who has the Bluetooth connectivity and who doesn't. And so you see that, yeah, these, you know, and then the guy, I loved this one. I think this was Brazil. I can't remember. He goes to a graveyard and finds that there are all these blue lights showing from different graves. And he uses his Bluetooth connectivity and discovers that all these people have been vaccinated. And the signal is still being given off when it's triggered.
Wow.
So what the heck is this, right? This is spooky. This
Yeah.
is so spooky. But I already know the history of big pharma. Big pharma is spooky. The word pharmakoi, look it up in the Greek. This is black magic. This is Satanism. This is spells, like algorithms. An algorithm is nothing more than a spell. Imagine, think that way for a minute. You know, instead of this, oh, I'm rational, I don't believe in any of that mumbo jumbo from the past, better pull back some of those old languages and start thinking with your imagination, functioning as to what these satanic cult-like big pharma high rollers at the top, rich beyond belief. They were involved in World War I, the chemical warfare of World War I. They killed an entire generation of European youth. That's no small potatoes.
Mustard gas, right?
Yeah. Then you think of World War II. They walked away from World War II richer than ever because they provided the Zyklon B and everything else. So you know, start realizing that these.
And down, we can go further down the line. We've got Agent Orange, right? In Vietnam.
That's right. You've got the Ho Chi Minh Trail for
Operation Popeye.
Popeye. Yeah.
And then we got what they're calling now. What do they call it? Gulf War syndrome.
Well, yeah. I mean, all the wars are places to experiment with the latest tech.
Yeah,
and now
all those
we've had
are vaccinated beyond belief too.
But we've had the chemical trails. Where do you think those are from? Those are from Big Pharma.
Yeah,
we've had them for almost 30 years. We've been breathing what they've sent down for us. So, you know, if we can awaken to some of these old, quote, conspiracy theories that the CIA decided we would all be forced to think of as conspiracy theories, when really they were the real history of what was going on through these cult-like dynastic corporate families. So anyway, you wake up at levels, and when you wake up at a certain level, you wake up at one level, it suddenly opens up 3 other levels. Yeah. And then you wake up at one of those levels, and suddenly there's 7 or 8 new levels. And if you're really paying attention, you realize what you're doing is you're functioning in the divine world of loving truth. That's what it's all about. It's not a matter of being a Christian or being a Jew or being an agnostic or an atheist. No, it's the realm of truth, where you can see from one side. I'm sure there's other sides we could see from if we were divine beings off of the planet, but on the planet, we're looking at truth from a variety of angles, but not if we don't go looking for it. If we're waiting for our authority figures or the mainstream media to tell us what is true,
that cavalry ain't coming.
that's not going to happen, because that's all about power. So to me, and that's what, when you're talking media, and if no, you didn't know about the Bluetooth connectivity. No, they don't talk about that. Well, yeah, we know why. In fact, I often on radio shows say, I'm trying to be humorous, but dark humor, that I'd love to do a survey and find out how many people who chose to be vaxxed, how many have a TV and how many don't. I'll bet you almost all of them had a TV.
Yeah.
I'll bet you.
Yeah. I bet there are very few people without a TV.
Very few.
Got vaxxed.
Yeah, I mean,
very few, if any.
I have never owned a television. I can proudly say that.
Wow.
Never.
Incredible.
And I was not raised with TV. I have a real imagination. So there are reasons to know what is dual use. TVs are dual use. iPhones. The fact that everybody doesn't know yet that that's a weapon system, I just don't know how loud I can say it. Get rid of it. I mean, get rid of it. I'm not saying just put it out in the car while you sleep, because the apps on those phones, there are people who have access to your brain through that phone. Take my word for it. And when Klaus Schwab said, what did he say? You'll be poor and be happy. Yeah, you'll
own nothing, and you'll never have been happier,
because you're totally controlled and you don't even know it. And I
believe that.
It's your iPhone and it's the 5G. That's where we are now. And that's where the transhumanism really rests. Yes, the chemicals are necessary, because this matter that I call my body, it's full of chemicals transmuting into other chemicals and synergistically reacting and responding to each other. There's a whole dance going on in there, and that too can be manipulated by the electromagnetics. And finally, we get to the really important part of transhumanism, which is nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, my friends, is the biggest thing going now. And it was a completely quiet revolution. You never even heard about it when that revolution happened back in, I would say, the late 80s and early 90s.
So, it was around that time that I did happen to hear of nanotechnology in a sci-fi route. Like it was on a TV show, a British TV show called Red Dwarf. It was a comedy show where they talked about nanotechnology being able to transform the people on their ship into, I can't quite remember. It's been since then that I saw that, but that got into my head all the way back then. And it was not used for that
Right.
term kind of was like, oh, that was this neat thing that I heard about on TV this
Well,
one time.
yeah, I mean, a lot of, as we know, pre-programming happens through our entertainment technologies, the TV, the comics, and really Eric Drexler, who is the actual discoverer of nanotechnology, because we've always had nanoparticles. That's just a size thing. You know, it's just little tiny up in space, in our atmosphere, in the dust that collects on our furniture. We've always had nanoparticles. That's just 1/1000th of a meter. You know, it's tiny, and we just didn't have nanotechnology, and now we do. And this is a swarm technology. Let me be clear, a swarm technology. And what that signifies is it is to a large degree conscious. It is a conscious technology. And we've been breathing it in for 3 decades from the chemical trails. That was the last thing that really Clifford Carnicom could see, because he didn't have electron microscopes. But there were times when he would see in the petri dishes these swarms that happened, where billions or millions of the nanobots, the nanotechnology, because it was nanotechnology, not nanoparticles, that would swarm like birds in the sky, like fish in the sea, like bees,
where they're all moving
consciousness.
Yeah.
All moving as one. And that's the weaponizing
So
nanotech.
if I can go back to the Morgellons again, is it the belief that it is a biotechnology, or?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not
it's not natural
living thing. Yeah.
No, it's not natural, and it's not entirely non-organic. It's a mix, and Clifford had to break into that sheath, that polymer sheath, and in there he found organs. And I go into that in the last chapter of the Chemtrails Heart book, where he's found it. So one thing very important there is what he finally had to rename, which is the cross-domain bacteria. And it looked to be like a bacteria. It's well known that bacteria are very easy to gain of function, to change, so that you can patent it and turn it into your little pet machine that will make money for you. This looked to be a bacteria. It looked to be like the round one. I forget the name of it right now. And then that it had things done to it from other kingdoms of nature, because there are basically 3 domains considered natural, and this particular part of the Morgellons had all 3, and it turned out that was the sort of reproductive organ, so the way I see Morgellons, and I dare to say, I always hate to say Clifford thinks this or that, because he's very picky, but I would say that he too sees that the Morgellons that we experienced back in the 90s into the 2000, into the, et cetera, was a precursor to the hydrogel graphene oxide that is now being found in the serums and is being injected into people's bodies. Because the thing is with the hydrogel, the graphene oxide, they too are nanotech. All this is tiny, and it's all nanotech. So was Morgellons. It was nanotech, but Clifford didn't have that term then. And he did see that it was, at the same time as being organic, it was also inorganic.
Yeah.
So people who have the skin thing happen, right? That where the
And the
Morgellons,
doctors said, no, it's all in your
right,
mind.
right. And now the CDC at least acknowledges Morgellons exist, but what does it say? It misconstrues the whole thing. It says it's a skin ailment. It's not a skin ailment. It's a blood assault, just like the hydrogel and the graphene oxide are an assault on the human blood. This is super, super important because blood is a lot more. You have to read Rudolf Steiner in order to understand this. A blood is physical and extremely mysterious. Extremely mysterious.
That skin ailment, that being reported as a side effect of the vaccines?
No, that's from Morgellons is generally known among people. Like I have a lot of Morgellons people send me photos all the time. It can be where your entire scalp has been taken over, and what you're having is the entity that is in you as Morgellons is now recreating its own scalp, its own idea of scalp. And other people have severe rashes that almost look like microwave burns.
Is this the one that's related to prions?
Not really.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't put those two together in your mind. You can go and do some research into what Morgellons has been. The problem is now that, it too is being sort of tainted with fantasy, and I'm not sure quite. I would assume that the intelligence agencies would want to confuse the issue of Morgellons, because there's no way they're going to want somebody to connect the Morgellons of 40 years ago, 30 years ago, with the hydrogel graphene oxide luciferase that's going on now. But they are connected. There's no question in my mind. That's how long we've been the guinea pigs, folks. So even those of us who are not inoculated, of which I am one, I am not inoculated, we're breathing the graphene oxide. We're breathing the hydrogel, because this is the corollary system. The environment is the corollary system to the injection. And that, of course, makes sense, right? They're both big pharma.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to get people like me, along with all the people who, of their own free will, one way or another, even if your job was on the line, even if, you couldn't go see your kid because you didn't have a vaccine. All of that is all choice, my friends.
Choice.
And so that I don't have much sympathy there. It's a choice. And so the people who have chosen to do that and then line up again through the TV and iPhone conditioning and programming that's going on, line up again and again and again, even though somebody said to me, yeah, I didn't think it was a good idea, but I got the booster too. Well, okay, you're going in for the programming, you're going in for this transhuman journey that you're about to take. And then that's how hard life has gotten. I mean, we've been children for a long time here on planet Earth, making our boo-boos and fixing them, and just looking at our authority figures like mom and dad, or like God. And now suddenly, and in a way, I know this is going to sound like heresy, but in a way, the what's it called, the WEF,
World Economic Forum.
Yeah, maybe they've said to humanity, okay, this is it. You're going to have to either grow up, or bad things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I think we might be there. There is no going back now. And I, of course, not being inoculated, okay, yeah, that was a good move. But I'm still in this. I'm not superior. I'm not sitting pretty. I'm breathing what we're all breathing. And the GMO foods, let's not even get started on that. Even the seed of GMO foods is not of nature. It's from a lab.
Yeah,
So-
these are difficult realities for everyone, myself to wrap our
Yeah.
heads around.
Yeah.
Because people like Adam and I are both homesteaders. We both grow our own food as much as we can. We raise our own animals. We do all these things, but our animals are breathing this air. Our plants that we're eating, you know, I can be so proud of a tomato. I'll go grab one right now out of the garden and I'll show you how delicious this thing is. But where did it get its water? Where did all of the soil that it's in has had at least, you know, as we're talking right now, at least
If it's
30
under the
years.
air, exactly. But it's
And-
still an organic seed. It's still of nature, because I assume you're using
Oh, yes.
organic seed. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
You're
natural
not using
seed,
those Monsanto seeds anymore, Chuck?
not Monsanto
I'm trying not
Terminator
to. I'm
seed.
trying to quit.
I mean, because, you know, every time I eat out in a restaurant, I know I'm eating GMOs.
Yeah.
And in the GMOs, because of the big pharma connection, do I know what they've put into these GMOs? No, I have no idea.
No.
So I know that those GMOs in me are going to feed that nanotech in me. It all works together because it comes from the same source. So, you know, this is going to keep you awake nights? Well, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for comrades. I'm looking for people who realize we weren't going to be here forever anyway, right?
Yeah.
We're all going to go through the gates of death at some point. And what have we done for our brothers and sisters and the life of our beloved planet? That's the only question there is. It's not a matter of staying safe and not going to a FEMA camp and, you know, and keeping away the medical tyranny that's coming. It's more about that on every scale. Now that means, you know, you have to look at your lifestyle. Maybe some things have to change. That's what knowledge does to all of us. It changes us, and that's its purpose. That's why we have this wonderful brain and this capability of really learning true knowledge, and of actually developing what Steiner calls the consciousness soul, which can actually tell the difference between a lie and the truth.
Yeah. I
So,
like the fact that
you
you
know-
brought him up because Chud and I both have orgone buried all over our properties. So
Yeah, which is ether, which is etheric. Yes, and it is good. It is good to do that. The etheric is exceedingly important. So I don't know. Did I explain transhumanism? They present it as enhancement and super skills like the X-Men, but that's not really what they have in mind. That there's going to be a mass of slaves who will do what they're electromagnetically told to do. And then they will have a certain way of looking at themselves as souls, but they will have no contact with their actual real soul. Can you hear that?
yes.
That's
Yeah.
what I realize now.
That's when you get into that term a lot of people use these days, the NPC. Have you
What's
heard that
that?
term? They call it non-playable characters, and that we have non-playable characters that we interact with every day who are not, they're not really there. They're living, they're functioning, they're a part of society, but they're not connected to their soul anymore.
No,
There's
I
no
think
one.
I think you're
There's
right.
no one there.
I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are not connected to their soul anymore. And I guess that's why all these years I've gotten used to a certain loneliness of consciousness, I call it. It's knowing is very, very good, and I would not give it up for anything, but it is a bit lonelier than I ever really knew it would be, when your consciousness is, I can only imagine how Jesus felt as he walked the earth in Galilee.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So that's a long way. I'm sorry, a long way to answer the question about geoengineering and transhumanism.
There's no apology necessary. That was fantastic.
That was the point of the question, to have it be a big long answer. And really, I was hoping, Debra, do you have any questions out of what you've heard Elana say tonight? Is there anything that you took from that you were like, you just didn't wrap your head around, or anything like that?
Well, all the blue lights,
Bluetooth
the blue,
connectivity.
the Bluetooth.
And that cemetery picture, right?
Yeah.
What a picture, huh?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about the cemetery. I definitely heard about people connecting to like they'll go into a restaurant and they connect to their Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And I'm a little confused what that means. I don't have a smartphone. I don't do the Bluetooth thing. What does it mean to connect to the Bluetooth? Like, it's like, does there?
It's an app.
But their bodies are connecting to it. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, whatever is in them, and I assume it would be some of those little computer parts that I was talking about that are going into the serums and going into the blood.
Yeah.
Some of those must be transceivers. So the signal from a Bluetooth app goes out. It's looking for a cell tower, for whatever.
Yeah.
Boom, finds connectivity in these people, because they're all being tracked.
Okay.
All their biometrics are being constantly 24/7 tracked and traced.
What does that manifest as? Like, Adam, you seem to say, like, I don't know, maybe you didn't. I thought maybe you were indicating there's like a video. Like, does their name show up on the TV?
Yeah.
Like I don't quite.
Well, it does. You can actually go to, last I checked, and I haven't checked in several weeks. You can go to the dark web and you will find every single vaccinated person.
I've heard this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's via the Bluetooth pulsing out, because these are all pulses, right?
Yeah.
And they must have the frequency for this, for the Pfizer, for the AstraZeneca, for the whatever. And they go out, and then they're in touch now. So when you have this concept, people are talking about the shedding. What is really happening is, if you're non-vax and you're near someone who's vax, and then you develop symptoms that are similar to COVID or whatever, the flu, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you're not getting contagion from a virus. That doesn't exist. Wipe that from your mind.
Yeah.
That germ warfare theory is over. It is over, and it never was true when it was here. Just dump it. And if you can't do it easily, read Tom Cowan, MD's book.
The Invisible Rainbow?
No. That's Arthur Furstenberg.
Oh.
No, Tom's book is The Contagion Myth.
That's the one. Yeah.
And so, you pick up, you're near someone who's vaxxed, and they're transmitting, because they have an electromagnetic field you can't see around them now, because ever since they got the vax, they've been plugged in to the Bluetooth, hoovering up all the biometrics.
Mm-hmm.
That's the purpose of it. So now you're in that field, you're near that field, and now you begin to pick up some of the transmissions. You see, you now are sensitive to maybe the algorithm, maybe however you want to think of it, but you are in the field now. So how far would you have to get away from that person in order not? Because every electromagnetic field is like this. It's at a 90-degree angle. Electricity, magnetic, okay? And they're just like that shape. and they're around that person. So how far would you have to get? I don't know, 3 meters maybe? I don't know. You'll have to find that out. And you can tell, I mean, I get around, I don't see many people because I'm I'm a writer. I live in, you know, my cage here. But when I am around vaxxed people, I don't feel anything. But I'm not living with them. I'm not resonating with them as
Right.
friends or lovers or any of that. Relatives, no. So that's what that has to do with. Just to clarify that.
I think we have some power in that too. I work a day job. I spend time out in what I call the matrix out there around vaxxed people. Some that I see regularly. I'm around people who get sick often. I don't get sick. It's very rare that I get sick. I never seem to get whatever is in quotes going around. Even though I'll be in, you know, I should theoretically be resonating with these people in that I spend, you know, between 2 and 5 days a week for a few hours a day around them. So, you know, you'd think it would sync up, but I keep myself very mentally focused in a way that I don't resonate with these people, if that makes any sense. You know, I'm in there, I'm in my own, I'm putting off my own bubble. I'm trying to infect them with my frequency. And I try my best to refuse their frequencies. And I think that has helped me for 20 years.
And you're bringing up a very important subject, which is consciousness. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Consciousness is hugely important in what's going on now and what will be going on as things heat up, is our consciousness. So it's a good time to really understand your consciousness and live a life of balance is how I do it. I'm 75, haven't been to a doctor since I was 13. I don't do Western medicine. I studied Chinese medicine in my 20s. I was going to be a Chinese doctor until life took me in another direction. So I use yin yang, which is basically acid alkaline, and keep life within balance, given that you don't eat just for the body, you eat for the soul as well. You have to, you're a human, it's okay. But, you know, to keep within balance from a food angle, that would be organic food. Like, you know, you don't eat sugar because sugar is very acidic. And there are various things where you keep that alkaline strong, because the nanotech loves acidity. The Morgellons loves acidity. You know, and you're living in an electromagnetic environment. If you're, you know, even if you're rural now, I really think that since the satellites went up, that doesn't necessarily protect you to be rural. So anyway, electromagnetism loves acidity. So we keep that in balance. Then you keep your life in balance, not to, you know, your emotional relationships, you know, forget addictions, forget, you know, extreme reaction response drama. Try to find a way to live very balanced so that you can, for one thing, so you can see well and understand what you're seeing and grow as a soul as you live through your life, which has not been taken from you yet. And it is yours, even if you're vaxxed or if you're targeted or if you're anything, it's still your life and you still have choices. So, you know, to me, the whole fear thing, I don't know what that's about, other than possible demonic influence. Lucifer, Ahriman, you know, in Steiner language, you would look right away for the influence of some entities or beings that you've allowed to sort of come in, seep into your etheric forces or your astral forces, whatever. But if you are truly human, living in your beautiful humanity and living the life that has been given to you, and you have chosen, both go on simultaneously. You take what there is, and if it's lemons, you make lemonade. And if it's hard, you build your will, because your will is beautiful and the least developed of our incarnation. So there's always something to do, is what I'm saying. It's not that we should have it easy here. No, easy has not been good for America, has it?
Nope.
Has not been good.
No.
And now here we go. Because
in fact, the whole smartphone thing and the people who are walking into this transhumanism willingly, I think has a lot to do with people just wanting the easy path. Even
they think it's going to be easy.
Yeah,
they think that it's easy.
Convenience, yeah.
But it's not. It's a convenience thing. I mean, all the way to the point where you experience people who don't feel that they need to think anymore because they've got all of it right here in the palm of their hand. They've got their brain in the palm of their hand. You ask them a recipe and they don't know how to make that food. They've made it. They made it last night, maybe even, but they don't need to retain that. It's all right here in the palm of their hand. And the idea of things like boredom are becoming they're becoming obsolete because people aren't bored. They've always got something to look at in the palm of their hand. And I personally counter argue that by saying that I think that we're living in the most boring form of society we've ever had, because everyone is staring at their hand. They're not. What we're doing is extremely boring. Everyone's living little boring lives in little boxes where they're all separated from each other and they're looking at their own hands and they're not accomplishing anything. That sounds like boredom to me. But if I talk to someone who's doing that, they say, I heard a young guy the other day said, oh yeah, I guess if I'd been alive in the 90s, I might have just sat around and listened to music because there was nothing to do back then. And I'm going, okay, that's interesting. But hey, what I had to do is think about, what did that guy mean by that? And what he meant is that he doesn't sit around and listen to music because he's always scrolling. He's always rubbing this piece of glass that's encased in plastic that's in his hand that supposedly has electronics underneath it that I can't even verify because I've never taken a smartphone apart. But as far as I'm concerned, he's just sitting there rubbing a piece of glass and considering himself to be entertained and not bored. But I don't see it that way. It's hard to say where all this is leading us as a culture, as a society. Yeah. But I don't think it's good. I think all good things that have ever happened to any individual or to humanity as a whole have been difficult. They have not been boring. They have not been easy. And we have to work. We have to work to be okay. We have to work to make ourselves okay and the people around us okay. And it's that's what's slowly just disappearing from our culture.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there is an evolution of humanity that now the global elite are trying to throw it off track. And so for me, and I'm considerably older, it's very clear to me that this is a real danger. This is a real danger. Not just not having a fulfilling life, or being bored versus entertained versus knowledge versus lost or depressed and taking drugs for your depression or whatever. It goes beyond this life that I'm most concerned about now. because I see how we could lose this humanity. We could lose a natural human race. And I simply cannot, with every fiber of my being, I am opposed to that. And so, I realize that, a lot of people wonder how I can just keep on this track. I mean, that's why it's real to me now. And I do not want these global elites to take away our free will to the degree even that we have it. Most people don't have much free will at all. Not at all. They call themselves free because they don't know what freedom really is. They don't have a spiritual life. They don't have an inner life. I have an inner life in spades, big. In fact, every day is a one long prayer, one long being inside of the highest of the holiest. And it's that realm that is making it clear to me that this is all hands on deck now, in order to just have the right to be human. And I never thought I would see this day in my lifetime, but what's my response? I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled I lived long enough to be here for this, because I am a warrior through and through for many lifetimes, many lifetimes. And this is the time when we need the best of our thinking, the best of our health, in order to be that qualitative node in the entire humanity that speaks for the best that we can be. Not that I'm the best, but that I stand for the best. And I live for the best.
Yeah.
And that's all I ask of people. I mean, that's probably a lot, but that's what I ask people to join in on, is to be the very best that you are, and not to allow fear to have one iota of your attention, but to live out of this beauty of being an actual human being. Rudolf Steiner says, and I've said this many times, that the human being is the religion of the gods. Why? Because we are living in material world, in material bodies, and we are attempting to be spiritual beings doing so. And that's, and meanwhile, we're trying to develop free will where we do the right and the best and the holy thing, not out of fear that, an authority figure is going to slap us silly if we don't, but out of love for that, out of love. That's got to be the best.
Making choices based on love instead of being controlled by fear. That's the
yes. As long as you know what love is, because love sometimes does not look warm and fuzzy.
That's true.
And I'm not the warm and fuzzy kind of love kind of person. I can tell you that.
M.R. Gorga says that fear and depression are all demonic entities.
Yes, that's how I think of them, because you remember you had the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues, and they were in opposition. And those 7 deadly sins have a great deal of activity in them, which means they are beings. They are alive in some diabolical way. And if you let them in, you're going to have a fight on your hands, right? So that's to me, I just roll with good company, is like how I like to say it. I have relationship with the spiritual world, and it is an easy thing to do the good, the true, and the beautiful out of love for it, as long as you keep a balanced life.
Yeah,
that's the key. Because like drugs, like marijuana and all the drugs that my generation did a lot of, I quit all of it. I hadn't had much, but I did have LSD 3 times and saw spectacular, amazing things, and had mushrooms twice and peyote once, and then smoked marijuana with friends off and on. But I gave everything up at 21. I wanted my own consciousness.
Yeah.
I'd already seen what you could have with those helpers, but I wanted my own, and I knew I was going to have to work for it.
Yep, that's a fantastic way to put it. I love that, and I hate it when people that really hits me hard, because I know there's this whole big push for psychedelics now, and if you look who's pushing it, it's the people that are my enemies, and people you see celebrities like what's that guy, comedians and stuff talking about how what's the one Joe Rogan does, all DMT. It's the God hack, and it's like God's not supposed to be hackable.
Well, and who's behind it? I mean, you know, big pharma ran the whole drug scene of the it's big pharma. It's always big pharma.
God hack. That's the quick way to God. And like we were saying earlier, the things that really matter are not easy. There's not a quick path. There's not a hack. There's not a hack to figuring out what true love is. There's not there. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's sad to me that we're in a state where a lot of the people who are on the spiritual side, in air quotes, there are simply there from the use of psychedelic drugs.
Yeah, it's Neil Brennan's the one that said that. He's a comedian. But yeah, and I said I wouldn't do this and get into the spirituality that I've chosen, but the one that I'm really looking into and inquiring about really puts a big emphasis on suffering for it. And
well, there's going to be suffering, because it's a human. To attain things through your humanity is a different thing than to attain things through drugs and so-called enhancements. It may be a harder road, it may be a longer road, but it's yours. It's yours from the bottom to the top,
and you earn it,
and that's key. That is really key.
Well, Elana, we've kept you for long enough. I think that's a good place to stop, unless you guys have.
It is a good place.
I think this is a good high note for us to try to go out on here. Would you like to tell our listeners where they can find your books and where they can find out more about you, or any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I have a site that my web mistress keeps up. I hardly ever have time to go there. And that's elanafreeland.com. I guess you can get the books there. But the 3 geoengineering books are available on Amazon, or the first 2 at Feral House, my old publisher. And then I did Geoengineered Transhumanism, which goes into synthetic biology, on my own. And that you can get it at Amazon, but that's the black and white edition. I highly suggest that you go through the Rudolf Steiner bookstore in Seattle to get the color edition for just $15 more than you would have at Amazon. And I am now, believe it or not, I've been approached by Inner Traditions Publishing, and they've asked me to separate the book into 2 books and put them out as separate books. And I'm going for it. I'm signing the contracts, and I will write a book on geoengineering that alludes to synthetic biology, and I will write a book on synthetic biology, highly esoteric, with a lot of insights into it in a way of thinking that most people aren't accustomed to. And I will do these this year, and then those will be out. So consider the 650-page book, which is the one I've just written, as the foundation stone of the other 2 books. Someday these books will be, the foundation stone one will be very valuable, because that will have a very limited lifetime, 1 year, a little over a year. So anyway, those are the books. And then my Sub Rosa America series, which is the most autobiographical thing I've put out, which is not an autobiography. I did not say that. But it is written in a fictional format. It is the history of America since Kennedy's assassination. And I highly recommend it to people who want to know what happened to this nation that I tell in those 4 books. Those 4 books.
Yeah, we didn't even get into Kennedy at all here. Maybe if you would, if you'd like, sometime you could come back and we could just talk about Kennedy or something, because I know you've got a lot to say on that subject.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
one
I
we've
mean-
never gotten into on here. So
Oh yeah, that's true, huh? That's never
Yeah.
been on.
Yeah.
Here, so
Yeah.
So-
Okay. We'll think about it. Yeah.
we'll
And
think
MK
about
Ultra.
and
Yeah.
MK Ultra and
Yeah.
yes, and the whole LSD in the '60s. I know you've got some on that. And this,
Oh, I got it.
yeah. No,
Right.
there's plenty more we could talk about if you would ever grace us to come back again.
Yeah.
So
And I'm sure the fellow boomer on the show would really appreciate all that.
I
that
would
older stuff, so.
indeed. I would indeed. We lived through the 60s together.
Well, you need to read Sub Rosa America, then you'll really appreciate it. Okay, guys, this was wonderful. Blessings on all of you.
Yeah,
Thank
God
you
bless
so
Thank you,
much.
Ilana. You're
Likewise.
Fantastic. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
See you
Peace.
soon.
peace, everybody.
Bye.